Breaking news, Viking Nation, the storm is brewing inside US Bank Stadium. And what just erupted in London is about to shake the entire franchise to its core. A young star caught fire after being thrown into the cold shadows of discipline. A backup offensive lineman rose from nowhere to silence one of the most feared pass rushers on the planet. A veteran quarterback stood at the podium and spoke words that will echo through the halls of Valhalla. A head coach drew a line in the sand that no player can cross without consequences. And a captain, a leader, a warrior wearing number 18 stepped forward and took full responsibility for keeping his brothers accountable. 5 revelations, 5 moments that could redefine the identity of this team as we march toward the second half of the season. 5 stories that prove the Vikings are not just winning games, they're building something unstoppable. And if you think you know what happened in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, think again, because the truth is deeper, more explosive, and more emotional than any headline could ever capture. Stay locked in, Viking Nation, because the first bombshell is about to detonate right now. There's a secret weapon on this Vikings roster that doesn't show up on any stat sheet, doesn't get tracked by next-gen stats, and won't ever appear in the box score. But make no mistake, it's the most powerful force driving this team forward through chaos, adversity, and fire. And on a cold Sunday morning in London, that weapon revealed itself in ways that sent shockwaves through the locker room and left the entire NFL taking notes. Because when a young wide receiver makes a catastrophic mistake that gets him benched for an entire quarter, when a head coach publicly calls out a player for missing a team walkthrough, when the pressure is suffocating and the spotlight is burning, that's when you discover who the real leaders are. And Justin Jefferson just proved, once again, why he's not just the best receiver in the league. He's the heartbeat, the conscience, and the soul of this franchise. Jordan Addison was nowhere to be seen in the first quarter against the Browns. Not on the field, not in the rotation, sitting on the bench while his teammates battled through the opening 15 minutes without him. And when head coach Kevin O'Connell was asked why, he didn't sugarcoat it. Addison missed a walkthrough during the week. A walkthrough, not a practice, not a meeting, a simple, straightforward walkthrough where the team goes through plays at half speed to make sure everyone is on the same page. And Addison wasn't there. O'Connell's words cut like a blade through the post-game press conference. Those types of things aren't in alignment with our standards. We wanted to make sure he was held accountable for that. Accountability, standards, discipline. 3 words that define what this coaching staff is building in Minnesota. But here's where the story gets deeper, because this wasn't just about a missed walkthrough. This was about a pattern. Addison already missed the first 3 games of the season due to a suspension for violating the league's substance abuse policy after a DUI arrest last summer. He was driving 140 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone back in 2023. And now, just 1 week after returning from suspension, he misses a team walkthrough. For a young player trying to rebuild trust and prove he's committed to the team, this was a devastating step backward, and Jefferson knew it. After the game, Jefferson didn't hold back. "I definitely had my words with Ya," he said, his voice steady, but filled with the weight of responsibility. It's all about growing up and just being a part of the team and knowing the stakes, knowing that he's a valuable part of this team. I've just got to do better keeping him under my wing and making sure he has his head on straight. Did you catch that? Jefferson didn't throw Addison under the bus. He didn't distance himself from the situation. Instead, he took ownership. I've just got to do better. That's leadership. That's what separates good players from great ones. That's what turns a talented roster into a championship team. Jefferson could have said nothing. He could have let O'Connell handle it. He could have stayed silent and let the media circus swirl around Addison. But that's not who Justin Jefferson is. He's a captain. He's a leader. And he understands that when a younger player stumbles, it's not just on the player, it's on the veteran to guide him, to mentor him, to pull him back into the fold before it's too late. And here's the beautiful twist to this story. After sitting out the entire first quarter, after the humiliation of being benched in front of a packed London crowd, after all the whispers and doubts, Jordan Addison stepped onto the field in the fourth quarter and caught the game-winning touchdown. With 25 seconds left on the clock, a 12-yard strike from Carson Wentz that sealed a 21-17 victory over the Browns. Redemption, forgiveness, trust, all wrapped into one moment. O'Connell smiled when he talked about it afterward. He spoke with the team to let them know that whenever I gave him the opportunity to go in the game, they could count on him, and he makes the game-winning catch. Jefferson praised Addison's resilience. For him to come out with that going on and still being able to make plays out there and finish the game with a touchdown to get us up, it was like it was meant to happen. He's a tremendous talent. But let's not sugarcoat this, Viking Nation. Addison is on thin ice. One more mistake, one more lapse in judgment, one more moment of immaturity, and the goodwill runs out. The second chances end. The patience evaporates. This is the NFL. This is a business, and no amount of talent can save a player who refuses to grow up. So the question is, will Addison learn from this? Will he take Jefferson's words to heart and finally become the professional this team needs him to be? Or will this be another chapter in a story that ends in disappointment? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, Justin Jefferson is not going to let him fall without a fight. And if you believe in the power of leadership, in the strength of brotherhood, in the soul of this Viking Nation, smash that subscribe button right now and let the world know that we don't just win games, we build warriors. Because hold on, as shocking as that revelation is, the next story cuts even deeper and might just be the most unbelievable performance you'll witness all season. Imagine walking into the Lions' den. The most dangerous pass rusher in the entire National Football League is staring you down. He's got more sacks than you've got starts. He's got more Pro Bowls than you've got years in the league. He's destroyed all-pro tackles, demolished veteran offensive linemen, and turned quarterbacks into statues frozen in fear. And you're a backup, a journeyman, a guy who's been getting torched all season. Your pressure rate is 14.3%, one of the worst in the league. You've never started a game at this position, and you're about to face Myles Garrett one-on-one for 60 minutes in front of a global audience in London. This is the stuff of nightmares. This is where careers end. This is where hope dies. Unless your name is Justin Skull, and unless you're wearing purple and gold. Because what happened on that field in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium wasn't just an upset. It was a masterclass, a statement, a declaration that this Vikings offensive line refuses to be defined by injuries, chaos, or impossible odds. Let's set the scene. The Vikings were already playing without 3 starting offensive linemen. Christian Darrisaw, the anchor at left tackle, was dealing with injuries. Blake Brandel, who had never snapped a ball as a center in college or the NFL, was starting at center for the first time in his career. Joe Huber was starting for the first time in his life. And Justin Skull, the backup tackle who had been a turnstile all season, was thrust into the starting lineup to face Myles Garrett. The Cleveland Browns defensive line entered the game as the most dominant unit in football. They had terrorized quarterbacks all season. They had destroyed the Green Bay Packers offensive line just 2 weeks earlier, and they were salivating at the thought of feasting on this patchwork, makeshift, decimated Vikings offensive line. But here's what happened instead. According to Next Gen Stats, the Vikings limited Myles Garrett to just 2 pressures on 35 pass rushes, 2 out of 35. That's a pressure rate of 5.7%, his second lowest pressure rate in a single game since 2021. Read that again. Let it sink in. The best pass rusher in football was neutralized by a backup offensive line that had never played together before. But it gets better. The Vikings chipped Garrett on 15 of those pass rushes, the 3rd highest chip rate he's faced since 2018. They schemed, they adjusted, they doubled him, they made him irrelevant. And when Christian Darrisaw left the game at halftime, everyone expected the floodgates to open. Everyone expected Garrett to feast on Justin Skull. Everyone expected Carson Wentz to get buried. But Skull didn't allow a single pressure in 14 pass blocking reps against Myles Garrett. Not 1 pressure, 0, nada, nothing. Guy who had been getting destroyed all season suddenly turned into an all-pro against the most feared edge rusher in the league. How? Grit, preparation, coaching, heart, the refusal to back down when the odds are stacked against you. Carson Wentz was emotional when he talked about it after the game. "I'm so proud of these guys," he said, his voice cracking with pride. "For the guys to do what they did today in a one-of-a-kind week here. We were short-handed before the game. We were missing a handful of guys. Blake Brandel starting his first game ever as center. Joe Huber starting for the first time ever. Justin Skull starting at right tackle and then flipping to left tackle against one of the best defensive ends in the world. These things aren't easy to do, for them to keep fighting and battling. Guys make mistakes. It happens. I made mistakes. The way they kept battling and fighting makes me so proud of those guys. This wasn't just about blocking Myles Garrett. This was about identity. This was about proving that this team doesn't fold when adversity strikes. This was about showing the entire league that the Vikings are built different. Because here's the reality, Viking Nation. Most teams would have crumbled in that situation. Most teams would have gotten Wentz killed. Most teams would have packed it in and said, we'll get healthy and try again next week. But not these Vikings. Not this offensive line. Not this coaching staff. They looked at the impossible and said, watch us. And now, as they head into the bye week, the message is clear. When this offensive line gets healthy, when Addison is back at full strength, when Brian O'Neill returns, when Dalton Risner is ready to go, this unit is going to be a problem for every defense in the league. Because if they can shut down Myles Garrett with backups and journeymen, imagine what they'll do when everyone is healthy. So here's my question for you, Viking Nation. Do you believe in this offensive line? Do you believe in the heart, the fight, the refusal to quit that defines this team? If you do, drop a comment right now and let me know. Because if you think that performance was stunning, just wait until you hear what Carson Wentz had to say about the man. Who's carrying this entire offense on his back? And just when fans thought it couldn't get crazier, here comes the next bombshell that's pure emotion and respect. There are moments in this league when a quarterback stands at a podium, looks into the cameras, and speaks words that transcend football. Words that aren't about schemes or play calls or protection adjustments. Words that come from somewhere deeper, somewhere raw, somewhere honest. That when Carson Wentz was asked about his connection with Justin Jefferson after the dramatic 21-17 win over the Browns in London, he didn't just give a generic answer. He didn't recite some rehearsed cliche about being on the same page or trusting the process. No, Wentz delivered one of the most powerful tributes you'll ever hear from one player to another, and it's a reminder that greatness recognizes greatness. Wentz started slowly, choosing his words carefully, as if he was trying to capture something that can't be fully explained. I mean, Justin is the best there is, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. I've been watching him from afar for years, so it's just really fun to get a front row seat. Let that sink in for a second. Carson Wentz has played with some of the best receivers in the league. He threw passes to Deion Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, and Devonta Smith in Philadelphia. He's seen elite talent up close, and yet, when he talks about Justin Jefferson, there's something different in his voice. There's awe, there's reverence, there's the kind of respect that only comes when you're watching someone operate on a level that defies logic. Wentz continued, his words flowing faster now, as if he couldn't contain his admiration. We missed a few today. I missed a few, gave him some chances, got some back. He's incredibly good. I'm going to keep giving him those chances. We talked about things on the sideline, made sure we were on the same page. This is what chemistry looks like. This is what trust sounds like. Wentz knows he can take chances with Jefferson. He knows that even if a throw isn't perfect, Jefferson will find a way to make it work. He knows that if he puts the ball anywhere in Jefferson's zip code, there's a chance it gets caught. That's not just skill, that's confidence. That's the kind of connection that turns good offenses into unstoppable ones. But Wentz wasn't done. He leaned forward, his eyes intense, and said something that should be played on repeat in every NFL locker room. I can't say enough good things about him, not just as a receiver, but as a true leader for this team. The way he carries himself, his work ethic, his yards after catch, broken tackles, everything. He does so many things at such a high level. I can't say enough good things about him. Did you catch that? Wentz didn't just praise Jefferson's talent. He praised his leadership, his work ethic, his professionalism. Because here's the truth about Justin Jefferson that doesn't always get talked about. He's not a diva. He doesn't complain about targets. He doesn't throw tantrums when the ball doesn't come his way. He doesn't demand trades or create drama in the locker room. In his 6 years in the league, Jefferson has had 8 different starting quarterbacks. 8. Most receivers would have melted down by now. Most receivers would have forced their way out. Most receivers would have made it all about themselves. But not Jefferson. He just shows up, works harder than everyone else, leads by example, and makes every quarterback he plays with look better. That's why Wentz's words carry so much weight. Because Wentz has been around long enough to know the difference between a talented receiver and a generational leader. And Jefferson is both. In the win over Cleveland, Jefferson caught 7 passes for 123 yards, no touchdowns, but it didn't matter. He made the plays when it mattered most. He converted third downs. He kept drives alive. He set up the game-winning score. And when the game was on the line, with the Vikings trailing in the fourth quarter, Jefferson made one of the most stunning catches of the season. A 21-yard sideline grab that kept the drive alive and set up Jordan Addison's game-winning touchdown. That's the thing about Jefferson. He doesn't need the spotlight. He doesn't need to score the touchdown. He just needs to win. And when you've got a quarterback who recognizes that, who appreciates that, who feeds off that energy, that's when magic happens. So here's the question, Viking Nation. Do you realize how lucky we are to have Justin Jefferson? Do you understand that we're watching one of the greatest receivers in NFL history in his prime? Because if you do, hit that like button right now and let the world know that number 18 isn't just a player. He's a legacy. And listen closely, because the next story is going to take you behind the curtain and reveal exactly what Kevin O'Connell said when the cameras were rolling and accountability was on the line. But that's not the only fire burning inside this franchise. The next revelation is even more explosive and lays bare the standards that define this team. The NFL is a league of second chances, a league where talent can buy you forgiveness, a league where, if you're good enough, teams will overlook mistakes, ignore red flags, and give you opportunity after opportunity to prove yourself. But there's a line, a point where potential isn't enough, a moment where a head coach has to stand in front of the media, look into the cameras, and send a message to the entire locker room. This is who we are. This is what we stand for, and no one is above the standard. And on Sunday morning in London, Kevin O'Connell drew that line in the sand. The question came quickly in the post-game press conference. Why was Jordan Addison not on the field for the first quarter? Was it injury? Was it a coaching decision? Was it some kind of strategic adjustment? O'Connell didn't dance around it. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't try to protect Addison from the scrutiny. Instead, he looked directly into the camera and said the words that every player in that locker room needed to hear. He missed a walk throughout this week, O'Connell said, his tone calm but firm. And, you know, those types of things aren't in alignment with our standards. We wanted to make sure he was held accountable for that. Boom. Accountability. No excuses. No exceptions. Addison missed a walkthrough, a simple, low-intensity team activity where players walk through plays to ensure everyone is on the same page. And O'Connell made the decision to bench him for an entire quarter in a game the Vikings needed to win against a talented Browns team on an international stage with millions watching. That takes courage. That takes conviction. That takes a head coach who understands that if you compromise your standards once, they stop being standards. But here's where the story gets even more powerful, because O'Connell didn't just punish Addison and move on. He explained the thought process behind it. He made it clear that this wasn't about embarrassment or revenge or making an example out of someone. This was about culture. This was about building something that lasts. I love Jordan Addison, O'Connell said, his voice softening. He's a guy that I care about tremendously. He knows that every guy in the locker room has his back. He knows that my confidence and belief in him will never waver. But at the same time, we've got standards. Personal responsibility and accountability are huge when it comes to culture. There it is. Love and accountability, trust and discipline, belief and standards. Those aren't contradictions. They're the foundation of a championship. Culture. O'Connell could have handled this privately. He could have fined Addison, kept it quiet, and avoided the media firestorm. But he chose transparency. He chose to make it public. Why? Because he wanted the entire team to understand that no one gets a pass. Not the star receiver, not the first-round pick, not the guy who just came back from a 3-game suspension. Everyone is held to the same standard. And here's the redemption part of the story. Addison didn't pout. He didn't sulk. He didn't create drama. Instead, he did something that showed maturity beyond his years. Before the game started, Addison stood in front of his teammates and spoke. He took responsibility. He apologized. He promised that when his number was called, they could count on him. And then he backed it up. With 25 seconds left in the game, trailing 17-14, Carson Wentz dropped back and fired a pass into the end zone. Jordan Addison hauled it in for the game-winning touchdown. The same player who had been benched for the first quarter became the hero in the final minute. O'Connell smiled when he talked about it. He handled it professionally. He spoke with the team to let them know that whenever I gave him the opportunity to go in the game, they could count on him, and he makes the game-winning catch. That's the power of accountability. That's what happens when a coach sets a standard and a player rises to meet it. That's the difference between a team that crumbles under adversity and a team that uses it as fuel. But let's not pretend this is over. Viking Nation, Addison is still on a short leash. He's still one mistake away from losing the trust of this locker room. He's still proving himself every single day. And the question remains, will this be the wake-up call he needed? Or will this be another chapter in a story that ends in disappointment? I want to hear from you. Do you believe Jordan Addison has learned his lesson? Do you think he's finally ready to grow up and become the player this team needs him to be? Drop a comment below and let me know. Because if you believe in redemption, in second chances, in the power of accountability, then you need to subscribe right now and be part of this journey. And trust me, the story only gets darker from here, because the next chapter reveals what Justin Jefferson said when the cameras stopped rolling and the truth came pouring out. So here we are, Viking Nation, 5 stories, 5 moments, 5 revelations that paint a picture of a team standing at a crossroads. Between greatness and chaos, a young receiver caught between talent and immaturity, held accountable by a head coach who refuses to compromise his standards, and mentored by a superstar who understands that leadership means taking responsibility for the brothers around you. A backup offensive line that faced the most feared pass rusher in the NFL and shut him down with heart, grit, and refusal to quit. A veteran quarterback who stood at a podium and spoke words of reverence about a generational talent that transcends the game. And through it all, one name keeps echoing through every story, every moment, every revelation: Justin Jefferson. Because this isn't just about football. This is about identity. This is about what it means to be a Minnesota Viking in 2025. This is about building a culture where accountability isn't optional, where standards aren't negotiable, where leadership isn't a title, it's a way of life. And as this team heads into the bye week with a 3-2 record, with injuries, healing, with lessons learned, with momentum building, the question isn't whether they can compete in the loaded NFC North. The question is whether they have the mental toughness, the discipline, the brotherhood to become something special. Think about what we just witnessed in London. A team that was supposed to struggle without 3 starting offensive linemen dominated one of the best defensive lines in football. A receiver who was benched for missing a walkthrow caught the game-winning touchdown. A quarterback who's been doubted his entire career delivered in the clutch. A head coach who could have taken the easy road chose the hard one and built trust in the process. And a captain who didn't just lead with his play on the field, but with his words off it. That's not luck. That's not a fluke. That's a team that's starting to believe in something bigger than themselves. But here's the reality check. Viking Nation, this bye week is critical. The Philadelphia Eagles are coming to town in 2 weeks. The defending Super Bowl champions, a team loaded with talent, swagger, and championship experience. And if the Vikings are going to make a statement, if they're going to prove they belong in the conversation with the elite teams in this league, they need to come out of this bye week healthy, focused, and ready to make a run. Jordan Addison needs to grow up once and for all. He needs to prove that the wake-up call in London wasn't just a one-time moment of clarity, but the beginning of a transformation. Because the talent is undeniable. 19 touchdowns before the Browns game, elite speed, great hands, the ability to make plays in the biggest moments. But talent without discipline is wasted potential. And this team can't afford to keep babysitting a player who refuses to meet the standard. The offensive line needs to get healthy. Christian Darrisaw needs to be back at full strength. Brian O'Neill needs to return. Dalton Risner needs to be ready, because if they can shut down Myles Garrett with backups, imagine what they can do when everyone is at 100%. And Justin Jefferson, he just needs to keep being Justin Jefferson. 7 catches for 123 yards against the Browns, on pace for another All-Pro season. Leading this team not just with his talent, but with his voice, his presence, his refusal to let anyone around him settle for mediocrity. That's the foundation, that's the heartbeat. That's the reason Viking Nation can believe that something special is brewing. So here's the call to action, Viking Nation. If you believe in this team, if you believe in the culture Kevin O'Connell is building, If you believe in the leadership Justin Jefferson is providing, if you believe that this offensive line can be elite when healthy, if you believe that Jordan Addison can finally grow up and reach his potential, then you need to smash that subscribe button right now. You need to hit the like button and let the algorithm know that Viking Nation is the most passionate, most loyal, most dedicated fan base in the NFL. You need to drop a comment below and tell me which story hit you the hardest. Was it Jefferson's leadership? Was it the offensive line's performance against Garrett? Was it Wentz's tribute? Was it O'Connell's accountability? Was it Addison's redemption? Because this is more than just a YouTube channel. This is a community. This is a family. This is where Viking Nation comes together to celebrate the highs, process the lows, and believe in something bigger. And if you think this week felt like an earthquake, just wait until the Eagles come to town. Just wait until the second half of the season kicks off. Just wait until this offensive line is fully healthy and this defense starts clicking. And this team starts to realize what they're capable of. Because the real avalanche is just starting. The next 72 hours might be the most decisive in this franchise's history. Stay tuned, stay locked in, and Skol Vikings.